Welcome to Flame TV. It's my great pleasure to be joined by Anne-Sophie Corbeau, who's a senior gas expert at the IEA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Having
very
a good
much.
conference so far?
Oh, very good, excellent.
Excellent. Well, one of the messages that came out this morning and indeed yesterday was the fact that European gas demand has fallen, by about 1.5% over the last year. And I just wondered, when does the IEA expect gas demand to recover?
Not anytime soon, probably towards the end of the decade, but I give a little bit of warning. 2014 is going to be a disaster because we had extremely mild weather, so we are seeing for the first 2 months, February and January, we have a collapse of 16% cumulative compared to the previous year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so quite substantial.
I stopped heating, my apartment in February. So if the rest of Europe has done about the same, you wonder that European gas demand has been so low.
But you say it's a disaster, but it's not a disaster for the consumer because they're going to get lower gas prices, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Eventually, that could have a good effect for the power generators because until now there was absolutely no way that they would be competitive against coal-fired plants. But still, I don't think that we will see an increase of European gas demand in 2014, and probably we are going to be at a very low level, something like the numbers that we were seeing at the beginning of the decade.
Oh, ouch. And of course, one of the countries that's really been impacted is Spain, isn't it? Where they've got this huge renewables gas imbalance. Is that going to be recovering on a similar timescale, or will that take longer?
It's probably going to be a similar time scale. I mean, of course, Spain has been less impacted on the residential sector, but it's a disaster in terms of the power generation sector because, I mean, there is a triple effect actually. There is a power generation demand which is not growing that much, and in Spain, looking at the economy, it's not going to recover very rapidly. You have an increasing share of renewable, which is particularly the case in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And against coal-fired plants, gas is simply not competitive. And on top of that, in Spain, coal is a little bit protected, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, let's move to the supply then, because we've been hearing a lot about US LNG exports. And are we going to see a wave of US exports, LNG exports coming into Europe over the next few years?
One thing is sure, US LNG exports are going to happen. The first LNG train is going to be operational the beginning of 2016, maybe the end of 2015.
That's the Cheniere project, isn't it?
That's the Cheniere project, yes, I've been past the first train. So there will be US LNG. Now we are impatiently waiting for the other projects which have got the Department of Energy's approval to take final investment decision. It has not happened. I mean, they have got the Department of Energy's approval over the past year or so, but they still need to get first approval and take the final investment decision.
So what's the IEA's view on the volume of LNG coming out of the US in the future?
It's a bit difficult to say because this is going to be, our
no one wants to, do they? No.
In a publication which is still going to be published, but a reasonable volume, which I mean, would be a significant compared to the global LNG trade. I mean, we are seeing global LNG trade growing by about 1/3 between now and the end of the decade. So US LNG
will be a part of that.
Will be definitely a part of that. Regarding your question on whether it's going to reach Europe, I mean, contractually, of course, you have a lot of companies which have taken ownership of this US LNG, and they can play on the pricing differential. If the prices are more interesting in Europe, then the gas is going to land in Europe. Now, from an optimization point of view, we are looking at very long distances between the US and Asia, which is the biggest market.
So how's the pricing going to work in Asia? You mentioned that. Are we going to see that LNG being sold on a hub-related basis or oil-related basis?
Well, I mean, if you are looking at the Cheniere model, it's going to be Henry Hub plus.
Oh, yes, okay. But are we going to see, do you think, hubs being developed in Asia?
This is going to take a long time. The experience from North America and Europe shows that in order to develop a trading hub which is efficient, which is transparent, it's a good decade. And Asian
a good decade. So in my language, that takes me now to 2025, doesn't it?
Yes, this is une bonne dizaine d'années, as we will say in French, but it's at least a decade, because Asian countries are simply starting from scratch in terms of liberalization, third-party access, etc. But we see some progress. So it's not impossible that eventually we will have a trading hub or several of them in Asia.
We hope that happens. I think the buyers will like it. Anne-Sophie, thanks for dropping by to say hello, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. Thank you.